Hey listeners, thanks for dropping in. I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa. And this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
dirtbag murderers. Hey listeners.
Welcome back to Buried Motives.
Thanks for joining us today.
We are so happy you're here. We do love hanging out with you.
And we're glad that you like hanging out with us. I'm recovered from last week's case, and I'm excited to hear what Melissa's going to bring us today.
That is so hilarious, because I was just going to say, you remember what we talked about last week?
Oh no, we're not going to still talk about that, are we?
Well, kind of.
I'm done with Brian.
We're not going to talk about Brian anymore.
Okay.
But today's case is going to dive into another teen murderer case where we're going to discuss the parents' reactions.
Really?
Yes. Sometimes we are so in sync with what we are studying.
Oh my goodness. We really are. And we don't plan it because Melissa would have had her research already well underway when I would have told my case last week.
Exactly. It's always so eerie when this happens. But would you agree with me when I say most parents think the world of their children?
Absolutely.
Yeah, even if they aren't the best children, right?
Yeah, even if they annoy you or do things that you're not happy about, you still love them to your core.
Exactly. From the moment they are born, fragile and helpless, we hold them close. Staying up through the night to soothe all their cries, we watch them take their first steps, whisper their first words, and grow into people that we believe they are meant to be. To a parent, a child is a reflection of love and innocence and endless potential.
Absolutely. And that's why we stay up all night when they're babies, as well as when they're teenagers and we're waiting for them to come home.
Right? But what happens when that image of being perfect is shattered? When the child you've raised, the one you swore could do no wrong, commits an act so monstrous it defies comprehension.
Oh my goodness. But I don't think that as parents, we should look at our children as not being able to do any wrong and being perfect, because nobody is.
Right. But sometimes as parents, we do develop this kind of blind spot for our own children to think, oh, they can't do anything wrong.
Right. We want to protect them. If they got into a fight, it must have been the other kid who started it.
Right. We talked about last week how most parents would be more willing to let their child tell the whole story before they made assumptions that their child was actually guilty.
True. Even if they find a head in their closet.
Ooh, so gross. Last week, the parents reported it right away. But I don't think that's the reaction most parents would have. Sometimes I think that blind spot could be pretty big. And I think sometimes it could stretch wide enough to shield the murderer, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. For the parents of Joshua Davies, that was definitely the case.
It is so interesting. Actually, when I was researching last week's case, my youngest daughter, she knew what I was kind of researching. She didn't know any details. And so she asked me, Mom, would you turn me in? And I was like, sorry, honey, but yeah, I would. She's like, ouch. And I said, would you do the same? And she's like, nope. I'd be like, my mom was here all night with me. Which was really sweet.
But not something we want to promote.
No.
But very sweet.
I think she was half joking.
Yeah. Well, we've covered lots on the podcast, actually, that would cover for their loved ones.
Yeah.
It is interesting. It's a phenomenon that you can see both sides of.
Right. And I think you just get such tunnel vision that you're only thinking about your child and not the consequences of their actions.
Right. But the consequences of Joshua's actions were pretty horrific. Joshua Davies was born on September 26, 1994, to parents Haley and Stephen Davies. When he was a preschooler, his family moved into a terraced house in Aberkenfig, near Bridgend, South Wales. Haley and Stephen raised Joshua alongside his two younger brothers, fostering a close-knit and caring family environment, with Haley staying home to provide full-time care for all three of her boys. From an early age, Joshua exhibited a keen interest in history and fantasy literature, often immersing himself in books that fueled his vivid imagination. He was also an avid gamer, spending considerable lengths of time engaging in various computer games. At the age of 9, Josh developed a fascination with collecting antiques, knives, swords, and guns. A hobby that, while unusual, was not perceived as alarming by his family.
Right. So you're calling him Josh. So you might call him Josh or Joshua throughout the case?
Yeah, you got it, Christy. Sorry, I might change it up.
I do the exact same thing, but just so our listeners are aware.
He was most commonly referred to by his family and friends as Josh.
Okay.
So Josh's mother, Haley, described him as always being respectful and as a doting brother to his siblings. Haley would say in an interview after her son was convicted of murder that, quote, "He has never given us a minute's trouble. He has never been in trouble with the police. He didn't go out drinking with his friends, didn't smoke. He had never been involved in a fight." It was one of the reasons why she knew for certain her son could not have done the things police said he did, why she continued to believe in his innocence even after his conviction.
Ooh, Interesting. Because either mama's turning a blind eye and has actually no idea what her son is doing, or maybe he's innocent. Do you think he's innocent?
No, absolutely not. I think this is a huge blind spot for his parents.
Oh, so they're just delusional about it.
Yeah, I think that they just really can't put the image of who Josh was as their sweet little boy into what he does next.
Ugh, that would be hard.
Academically, Josh was an excellent student, consistently achieving high grades and demonstrating a particular talent for art. He was really good at drawing. He was known for his detailed drawings of devils and monsters, which were inspired by the video games that he played. So it wasn't kind of out in left field that he was drawing these monsters. They were actually from video games.
Right.
Additionally, he enjoyed writing stories that, in hindsight, were considered macabre. Teachers viewed him as a normal, well-behaved student with no indications of any underlying issues. And a psychological assessment of Josh revealed nothing in his mental makeup that could have contributed to the offense that he commits.
But that makes it more scary, to be honest, when you don't see this coming.
I think so, too. Socially, Josh wasn't the most popular kid, but he did hold a position of leadership within his close-knit group of friends.
Okay.
So he wasn't the highest in the hierarchy of his high school, but he did hold a position of respect amongst his friends.
He was kind of the leader of his little group.
Right. He was perceived as funny and charismatic, often organizing weekly meetups at a local cafe where they would gather together for breakfast. Friends acknowledged his obsession with weapons, but they did not express any concern. They just merely thought it was a peculiar interest that he had.
And it's interesting to me that teenagers are meeting for breakfast. I would never when I was a teenager.
This was an ongoing thing that his friends and him did. They would meet at a local cafe every Saturday morning.
Because honestly, you guys, even if Melissa was like, hey, you want to meet for breakfast? I'd say, brunch it is. Can we meet at 10?
Well, I don't know if they met later in the morning, but they were meeting every Saturday. It was something that they had started, and they were pretty religious about it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. They had a good group of friends, it sounded like.
Yeah.
And they were friends that felt like they knew Josh pretty well. They knew he had a knack for making these kind of grandiose statements about actions that he never really intended to carry out. He was kind of the bragging sort. He would make these statements, and they kind of knew that it was just all bravado that he was kind of spewing.
Hey, this is sounding similar to last week's case.
Right? I know. When I was listening to yours, I was like, oh, we've done it again. So crazy. To his parents, Josh seemed like the epitome of a well-raised child. His mother, Haley, expressed pride in his upbringing, stating, quote, "I think I've been really lucky." Referring to all of her sons, she said, quote, "They have respect for everybody. Josh is just caring. He always has been. And the other two are as well." So she felt a great deal of pride about how she had raised her boys.
I'm really curious how he becomes a dirtbag.
Well, I think it is the same kind of idea from your case last week, in that he wants to be powerful and be viewed as somebody important by everybody else. Haley's unwavering belief in Josh's character created a huge blind spot for Haley and for his dad, actually, too. It obscured their ability to recognize potential red flags, no matter how glaring those red flags appeared to outsiders or in hindsight. But they weren't the only ones that missed the signs, which I think is such a tragic part about this case. There were signs, and everybody missed them or just kind of brushed them off.
And that's why I do think it's important that we talk about cases like these so that we can become more familiar with the signs.
And learn that you should say something.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. When Josh was 12, he met the lovely Rebecca Aylward. Rebecca was born on February 28th, 1995, to John Aylward and Sonia Oatley. She was affectionately known as Becca. She was a bright, ambitious 15-year-old from Maesteg, South Wales. She was described by her family as, quote, happy, outgoing, and bubbly. She had a wide circle of friends across multiple schools in her hometown. Becca harbored dreams of becoming a barrister, reflecting her dedication to her studies and her promising academic future. She was deeply family-orientated, sharing a close bond with her younger brother and her sister, towards whom she was known as a little mum too.
Aw.
Yeah.
And the name Becca is just so endearing.
Yeah. At the age of 11, Becca developed a crush on Josh, who was 12 at the time, and from the neighboring village. Both attended Archbishop McGrath Catholic High School in Tondu, where their paths eventually crossed through mutual friends. Their shared interest, including the love of video games, laid the foundation for a deepening friendship. Over time, Josh became an integral part of Becca's family, often visiting their home and forming bonds with Becca's siblings. He even referred to Becca's mom as Mum. It was like he was just another one of the family members. He felt at home in their family.
Ooh, what a betrayal that this will be.
In 2009, when Becca was 14 and Josh 15, their relationship blossomed into a romantic relationship. Becca was overjoyed, having admired Josh for years. He had grown out of his awkward preteen stage and now stood 6 feet tall with bleach blonde hair. He presented a striking figure beside Becca, who was fairly petite. Both continued to excel academically, with Josh maintaining his reputation as the top student and Becca working diligently towards her aspirations in a legal career. Sonia, Becca's mom, had a favorable impression of Josh, finding him polite and well-mannered. She appreciated his presence, hoping that he would serve as a positive role model for Becca's younger brother, Jack, because the children's father was estranged from them. Josh's frequent visits and his respectful demeanor endeared him to her.
Wow, so she had no red flags about this boy.
Well, she does actually recognize some red flags, but I think that they were overlooked.
And probably not right at first.
Not right at first, as they were friends, but after they entered a romantic relationship, she had some red flags about him.
Okay.
And it seemed that Josh's attitude changed fairly quickly in his teen years.
With that onset of hormones.
Yeah, maybe. But I thought this just makes this whole event even more tragic and horrible because he was such a big figure in their family. Her little brother, I believe, was only 7 at the time, and he looked up to Josh.
Yeah, that would be an extra sting.
The young couple spent their time engaging in shared hobbies, playing video games and discussing their favorite fantasy books. They often met at the local cafe with friends, enjoyed each other's company, and just the normal, simple pleasures of teenage life. Their relationship seemed to be filled with laughter and mutual interest, and seemed like a typical teenage romance to those around them. However, beneath the surface, complexities did exist. Rebecca's sister Jessica once observed antique guns and knives in Joshua's bedroom, because he did collect these things. Along with these guns was the unsettling drawings of skulls and monsters, and it really kind of put Jessica off. And then on another occasion, Joshua showed Jessica a deer foot with a concealed blade, which he would press into her neck before claiming that it's just a joke.
What?
Yeah.
That's not funny, Josh.
It's not. But these are all things that come out later, like, oh, he did these things, and he had these things in his bedroom.
Okay.
But at the time, they were kind of missed.
Okay.
Sonia had her own occasions for raising her eyebrows. Once, while watching TV with the family, Josh had expressed an appreciation for the Ku Klux Klan.
What?
Yeah. And said he would love to be one of them.
No! I'd be like, get out, boy. You are not seeing my daughter.
Well, it seemed like Sonia had that gut reaction too. She stayed quiet, and then she raised the concern with Becca after Josh had left. I think she felt like she didn't want to embarrass Rebecca in front of Josh, but she's like, so hey, what did he mean by that? And Rebecca, with her mom, didn't take this as like, oh, you're telling me what to do or who to date. She's like, yeah, I had a concern about that too. And so much so that Rebecca actually admitted that the comment had disturbed her. Rebecca would later bring up her displeasure with the comment to Josh, and a heated text exchange would occur.
Oh.
So Rebecca wasn't having any of it. Unknown to Tanya at the time, though, Josh had started sending Becca some really nasty texts and was becoming really controlling.
How many times have we seen this?
It is a pattern, isn't it? And what's really sad is that the relationship only really lasts for about 3 months. It's not very long.
And they're young. That is usually how long a relationship lasts when you're 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, anyways.
But despite all these incidents, Josh's charm and strong bond he shared with Becca led to these situations being overlooked.
Right.
As their relationship progressed, Becca's independent spirit and willingness to challenge Josh's ideas seemed like it had intrigued him initially, but he wasn't overly excited about it as the relationship went on.
He wanted her to just go along with whatever he said.
Yeah, it sounded like that.
But he was the leader of his friend group. That was what he was comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. And he had also been described as the, quote, golden child among his peers. Josh was accustomed to admiration. And while Becca's assertiveness was refreshing and captivating because she challenged him, it didn't go over well in the long run.
So his ego was threatened because she was challenging him intellectually?
Not overtly, because it did seem like their dynamic was filled with this kind of mutual intellectual sparring. And they had a respect for each other. At least that's how Becca had viewed the situation. And the young couple were kind of really connected, but then they were also trying to navigate like, okay, what happens if you don't agree with me in their relationship?
Which is going to happen in any relationship.
Right? Yes.
But I could see if he's the leader of his group, he's this golden sunny boy at home, he's going to be expecting the same treatment with his girlfriend.
Right. And what people have suggested is that initially Becca's ability to challenge him on thoughts and to kind of stand up to him intrigued him.
Right. It was refreshing. It was attractive.
Exactly. But then as time went on, I think he found it more and more annoying.
Heaven forbid a girl have an opinion.
Right. But there have been some that suggested that actually Becca was a prime candidate to fall for Josh's charm. Because there are several reasons, many of them rooted in her personality and life experiences, that would have made her a little bit more vulnerable. Rebecca was known for her warmth, kindness, and having a really deep empathy for others. She was a girl who genuinely cared about others, often putting others' needs before her own. This made her especially vulnerable, I feel, to Josh's manipulation and his tendencies to have to need to be the center of attention. He played on her emotions, often going as far to falsely claim that he was dying to gain her sympathy. Rebecca's compassionate heart made it difficult for her to see through the deceit, and instead she wanted to help and support him.
This is so classic in these types of situations. You have this beautiful girl with these beautiful qualities about her, and then you have a manipulator, little narcissist, who takes advantage of that.
Right. And then there was also the fact that her parents had divorced and she had a really strained relationship with her father. So when Rebecca met Josh, her family was going through a difficult time. She had just moved to a new place, leaving behind familiar surroundings, and that strained relationship with her father may have made her more eager to seek out love.
Definitely, it made her more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the fact that she's a 14-year-old girl. Rebecca had this idealistic view of love. Josh was her first boyfriend. She had adored him from even before they had officially been together.
Yeah, they were friends for years.
Mm-hmm. So she had put him on this pedestal. And then when they finally became close, she was so thrilled. The initial excitement and the emotional investment that she had already put into this relationship would have made it harder for her to recognize those red flags.
Absolutely. And because if you already know someone as a friend for a couple of years, your guard is already down. It's not this stranger that you're getting to know. You feel like, I already know who this person is. But how someone behaves in your friendship can be completely different to how they will behave in your relationship.
Right. And though not the most popular, Josh was a natural leader. And he had a certain charm that made people kind of gravitate towards him. He was confident and intelligent, and he knew how to command attention. So Rebecca, who enjoyed engaging in deep conversations and intellectual sparring, was drawn to the challenge that he presented. And then plus her nature to take care of people, like she took care of her siblings, would have made her want to take care of him. And just like you said, Josh had already been a part of her life for 3 or 4 years. To Becca's family, Josh appeared to be the perfect boyfriend. He was polite, well-mannered, respected. He got along well with her younger siblings. He made promises to protect Rebecca and played the role of this caring and devoted boyfriend. So when he played this role in front of others, it was easy for Rebecca to buy into it.
Yeah.
And overlook some of the times that she maybe saw a darker side in him.
Right. Because mom likes him. Mom thinks he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that because she had this pre-existing relationship with him, she was more likely to be like, oh, this is an odd behavior, but that's not the Josh I know.
Right.
And overlook new behaviors. In the end, Becca's greatest strengths, her kindness, intelligence, and loyalty, became the very things that made her susceptible to Josh's dangerous charm. She saw the best in people, and unfortunately, that meant that she couldn't see the true danger lurking beneath the surface. Their relationship was intense, consuming. At first, it seemed like the kind of love story every teenage girl dreams of. Excitement, passion, and the thrill of being with someone who just seemed bigger than life. But slowly cracks began to form. They argued. Josh could be dismissive, cold, and manipulative. Becca, unlike many of the other people around him, challenged him. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind and to push back when she disagreed. And slowly, over the 3 months that they were together, the things that had drawn Josh to her in the first place were the ones that pushed him away.
Do you think that he said outrageous things like supporting the KKK to try and get that reaction out of her?
No, I actually think he says outrageous things to feel out the room and test the waters.
Okay, so he's actually believing these things and wanting to see where other people stand.
I think so. Yeah. In January of 2010, Josh spent a weekend with Rebecca's family, engaging in lighthearted activities that left everyone, especially Becca, feeling optimistic about their bond. However, shortly after leaving her home, Josh abruptly ended the relationship that night.
What?
Yeah, via text. He just said, I'm done. I don't think that we need to be in a relationship anymore.
What?
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
No.
And through text.
Yeah.
Come on. Don't do that, you guys.
So awful. But this whole thing left Rebecca and even the rest of her family completely shocked and very confused.
Yeah, especially after having a nice little holiday with everybody.
Yeah, they had gotten along perfectly the whole weekend. There had been no arguments. There had been nothing. The reasons behind the breakup were muddled and conflicting. Josh would claim that Rebecca had attempted to trap him into fatherhood by trying to get pregnant. A notion that was actually dismissed by those who know Becca at all.
Were they sexually active with each other?
Well, it seems like they might have been.
Okay. But I don't know any 14-year-old girl who's wanting to get pregnant at 14.
Especially not one that has these great aspirations of wanting to go on and become a lawyer.
Yeah, that seems fishy to me.
Josh also alleged that Becca had threatened to accuse him of rape.
What?
Yes. So this is what he's going around telling people at school.
Where is this coming from? This seems just out of left field.
It's so out of left field. Becca would confide in others after the breakup that it was all because she had refused to have unprotected sex with Josh.
Okay, that's making sense.
Mm-hmm. She had insisted that he wear a condom, and that request had angered him.
He really does have a fragile little male ego.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't do what he wanted, and now he's punishing her for it.
And he goes on to punish her. Following the breakup, Josh's behavior toward Becca turned dark quickly. He initiated campaigns of bullying, spreading malicious rumors about her at school and within their community. He sought to isolate her socially and attempted to erode her self-esteem. Despite this, Rebecca remained hopeful for a reconciliation. Her feelings for Josh persisted amidst his cruelty.
Oh.
So she kind of developed this is the new Josh, and I just want him to be the old Josh again, because he could be super charming. At first, Josh's bitterness seemed like a typical teenage kind of reaction. Angry words spoken in frustration, complaints muttered to friends. But as time passed, his words took a darker turn. These words weren't just idle venting. They were confessions of a mind consumed by violent fantasies. He began expressing desires to harm Rebecca. At first, these were like generalized thoughts. And this is where I think that he's just kind of testing the waters with people. He would joke to his friends, quote, "Wouldn't life be a lot easier if she wasn't here?"
What?
Mm-hmm.
That's not funny. That's not a joke.
It's not a joke, but nobody called him out on it. And so he had tested the waters a little bit and found like, oh, they're actually okay. They're not saying anything back. And so then he would go on to confiding in his friends about his fantasies for killing her, discussing methods such as poisoning her with the deadly nightshade or pushing her into a river because he knew she couldn't swim.
Goodness.
His friends dismissed his threats as dark humor, failing to recognize the severity of his intentions.
Well, they're probably not thinking he's actually going to do it. Because we've all heard someone who's so mad being like, oh, I could kill them. I'm so mad.
Mm-hmm. But these weren't just passing thoughts or mere exaggerations meant to shock his friends. Instead, it was deeply rooted malice that he was verbalizing on multiple occasions, making no attempt to conceal the sinister intent behind his words.
And don't they say, I don't know the exact psychology behind it, but verbalizing a plan, there's a way larger chance that you actually will do that thing. So even if you're setting a goal, by verbalizing that goal, you're more likely to reach that goal.
Absolutely.
It's no longer thought. It starts with a thought, goes to verbal, and then goes to action.
Mm-hmm. And he was saying this all out loud. He once asked a friend, Daniel, quote, "What would you do if I killed her?" To which Daniel replied, quote, "I'd buy you breakfast."
Daniel!
Hmm? But at the time, it seemed like a flippant remark. His response was meant to downplay the absurdity of the question. But Josh didn't take it that way. He took it as encouragement. No outrage or no horror was expressed to him. No one was telling him that he had crossed a line. If anything, his friend's reaction, or lack thereof, only reinforced the idea that he could do as he pleased without consequence.
Right. I'll take you out for breakfast to congratulate you.
Mm-hmm. There is so much to unpack about these interactions between Josh and his friends.
Yes.
That Josh was perfectly okay to share these desires out loud and seek validation from his peers indicated to me that he was deeply insecure.
Absolutely. This whole thing stemmed because he felt rejected, that she wouldn't let him go bareback.
And he thrives on other people's reactions. And he seemingly uses their dismissiveness as permission to escalate his thoughts and his actions. Because as time goes on, it's more specific and more specific.
So it's feeding this ideation in him.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like he needed to boast about his intentions because he wanted to prove his power over Rebecca. Even if she wasn't around, like just telling his friends about how he could kill her. Because eventually that's what I could kill her. It would be no problem. I could get away with it. It expressed his power over Rebecca.
This is terrible. And it's especially dangerous because he has a specific way that he's talking about that he could kill her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This means he's putting some thought into it. And I'm sure the friends, Daniel, didn't actually mean I'd buy you breakfast, but was just trying to sound cool and tough.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about the friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least I'm hoping that.
We'll talk about it.
Or they're all little Andrew Tate robots.
That might be more the case. Their reactions, I feel, just encouraged his.
They fanned the flames.
Absolutely. And as Rebecca showed that she was independent and strong without him as time went on, he just got more and more angry. So Rebecca put up with all of his bullying at school, all of the rumors that he started about her, and she eventually did go on to find another boyfriend. Joshua didn't like the fact that Rebecca was going on without him, and he aimed to make her regret it. Becca's seeming independence following their breakup seemed to provoke his aggressive anger. His fantasies of harming her were likely fueled by a toxic combination of wounded pride, resentment, and an underlying psychological predisposition towards cruelty, which he had shown through his drawings and through his
conversations with his friends.
Yeah, and all of the stories that he had written. His ability to openly discuss such violence without remorse suggests a dangerous lack of empathy, which is a hallmark sign of psychopathy.
Yes.
But he knew enough to test the waters.
Right.
And so, like he had at Rebecca's house with his comment with the Ku Klux Klan, he had tested the waters. It hadn't gone very well, so he didn't do that again. But with his friends, he tested the water. They didn't shut him down right away. And so he just kept escalating. Very
conniving. You can see how he would be just this master manipulator.
Right. I feel like the continued dismissal from his friends about not calling him out on it emboldened him and reinforced the idea that his violent thoughts were acceptable. Because what he was expressing to his friends was disturbing, but all these comments were brushed off as jokes. Had someone taken him seriously, whether by challenging him or telling somebody about the things that he was saying or distancing themselves from him, I think Rebecca's fate would have been very different.
Or even warning Rebecca and her family.
Just telling somebody else about it.
Yes, tell your parent and then they can let Sonia know.
But instead, ignoring the threats had tragic consequences. There are a few different reasons of why his friends might have not taken the threats seriously. Because they all claimed that they didn't tell anyone because they didn't take them seriously. So first, I think there's this piece of desensitization. He talked about murdering Rebecca or harming Rebecca so much that they became desensitized to it. In certain social circles, particularly among teenagers, dark humor and shocking statements can be really common, leading individuals to dismiss even the most troubling remarks as a mere attempt at attention seeking.
Yeah, they're talking smack.
And he had a history of doing this with his friends over everything.
Right.
Then there's the peer pressure and the group dynamics that played a role too. Standing up against a friend, especially one as manipulative as Josh, would have required courage that many teenagers lack. There's this kind of unspoken rule amongst teenagers or amongst friends to avoid snitching or overreacting.
Right, because then you could be out of the friend group.
I think they feared social repercussions. We have to remember the fact that they're teenagers, and sometimes they just lack an awareness of the severity that these threats could have led to.
Right, because no one in their right mind is going to be thinking, this is actually going to happen.
Exactly. But then I have to think, maybe they were just dirtbags like Josh, because they refused to challenge him. They provided him with false senses of security. They reinforced the notion that he could say and do whatever he pleased without facing any consequences. And worse than that, some of them encouraged his behavior.
That's a really sad situation.
It
And
is.
all of those friends, sadly, are going to have to live with the fact that they did nothing. We don't know where they're coming from, so we don't know how they feel about it. But I would not get over that easily as a friend.
No. I think some of them are handling it worse than others. Suspiciously, in the summer of 2010, Rebecca's health mysteriously declined. She experienced frequent blackouts and was hospitalized multiple times, with doctors unable to determine a cause.
Did he use the nightshade?
It seems like he did, but they can't prove it. During this period, Josh continued to fantasize about harming her, even as she was already suffering. It was also noted that he was never amongst the crowds of Rebecca's friends that would visit her at the hospital. Instead, he continued to talk about ways of harming her using poisons, mixtures of foxglove, and deadly nightshade. Which is a really odd thing to discuss when somebody is actually in the hospital. It's one thing to joke about it as something that might happen, but when they're actually sick, why would you continue to joke about it?
And sick enough to be in the hospital. And that's very peculiar for a teenage boy to choose poison.
It is odd, isn't it? It wasn't ever proven, but there is some evidence that comes out later that suggests that this might have been what was happening with this mysterious illness. Rebecca did eventually recover and began dating someone new. Like I said, she found a new Josh.
There's always a new Josh in town.
Right. But this guy's name was actually Josh.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This development was not popular with the old Josh and actually incited a lot of jealousy, despite his own romantic pursuits. He became more preoccupied with Rebecca and her whole family, tracking her down and demanding to know if her family liked her new boyfriend better.
Is he a better Josh? Yes.
Josh's obsession with harming Rebecca intensified at this time too. He frequently discussed his murderous intentions with friends, who continued to dismiss them as jokes. His plans became even more detailed, and he expressed frustration that no one took him seriously. 2 days before the murder, on October 21st, 2010, Josh texted Daniel, quote, "Don't say anything, but you may just owe me a breakfast," referencing their earlier conversation about killing Rebecca.
And Daniel didn't think this was a red flag.
Nope. Do you want to know how Daniel replied? Quote, "Best text I've ever read, mate. If it's true, I'm happy to pay for your breakfast."
Hey, Daniel, you're a freaking dirtbag.
His argument is that he did feel like it was just a joke. He had been talking about it for so long that he was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to go along with it. Josh texted back, quote, "I hope by then it will be done and dusted."
That's terrible. But he's saying you might actually owe me a breakfast, and you're still going to just assume it's a joke.
Yeah.
Best text I got all day.
That's actual encouragement.
That is.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, how would you feel if that was your mom or your sister or somebody that you cared about? It's not the best text of your day. That's sickening.
It's awful. Josh's murder of Becca was not an impulsive act. It was premeditated, spoken into existence through repeated threats and fantasies that no one took seriously. The signs were there, glaring and undeniable. And yet they were all ignored, laughed off, and dismissed as harmless jokes. But there was nothing harmless about what Joshua fantasized about. And by the time anyone realized the truth, it was far too late. On Friday, October 22nd, Josh texted Becca and asked her if she wanted to meet up the next day and talk. Becca had never fully moved on from their relationship and was thrilled by the idea of reconciliation. She'd even broken up with her new boyfriend because, leading up to this, Josh had been hinting that he would like to get back with her. Becca was ecstatic and went shopping with her aunt to find something new to wear.
No way.
Yep.
Oh, that's so eerie, Melissa.
Gross. On the morning of October 23rd, 2010, a cold and rainy autumn day, Becca got up at 6 a.m. and spent hours getting ready, singing and dancing in her room. Eager to impress Josh, she put on her new outfit, a red jacket and brown ankle boots, hoping to look her best for him. Josh spent his morning going out to breakfast with his friends at Cafe 107, their usual Saturday morning routine. As he left, he smiled and anonymously said, quote, "The time has come." But again, his friends brushed this off, thinking he was just running off his mouth.
But wouldn't you want to check? You're joking, right, dude? Like, come on.
No, they never raised the alarm to anyone. I think, honestly, at this time, the three of these friends were just in a contest of who could act more like the tough guy.
Who could be more outrageous?
Right. The guy to call attention to how disturbed this joke had become would lose favor, especially with Josh, who was the leader and was considered more cool than anybody else. Becca's mother, Sonia, was cautious about this meeting. She wasn't overly excited that Becca was still hung up on Josh. But Becca reassured her that everything would be fine. Becca felt that Josh was getting back to his old self, and that's what she told her mom. Around lunch, Becca kissed her mom goodbye and hopped in her aunt's car for a lift to the train station, where she would travel to meet Josh. However, while Becca was on the train, Josh changed their meeting location and asked her if she would come into the village instead. Responsibly, Becca phoned her mom and let her know that there was a change in plans and that she would be in a different place than originally planned. She was such a responsible girl. The last-minute change unsettled Sonia even more, prompting her to stay on the phone with Becca until she was sure that Josh had arrived. She wasn't comfortable with her just hanging out in the village by herself. When Josh finally approached, Becca was still on the phone with her mom, and she confirmed with her mom that, yeah, Josh is here. She identified him twice, telling her mom that she was sure it was Josh approaching her, using his full name both times. Yet notably, Josh did not greet Sonia through the phone when he got there, as he had done in the past. Becca's last words to her mom were, "Bye, Ma, I love you."
A parent shouldn't have to hear their child's last words.
No, it's sad. Becca and Josh walked together into a secluded wooded area known as Pennsylvania Park. And this was so heartbreaking because Sonia had warned Rebecca never to go into the woods. That day, she followed Josh into them. Josh had been planning for this moment.
It's so sad because it feels like a lamb to the slaughter. Because if you remember being a teenage girl and a cute boy that you want to be in a relationship wants to take you into the woods, oh, maybe he's going to kiss me. Like, what's going to happen? He wants to be alone with me. She probably was completely blindsided.
Right. You can see the whole hope of reconciliation. You can actually feel butterflies.
Right. How romantic.
It is really sad.
Oh, my goodness.
But once deep in the woods, Josh attacked Becca without warning. He initially attempted to break her neck with his bare hands, but failed. As she screamed, he grabbed a large rock, roughly the size of a rugby ball. This rock would later be shown in court, and it was actually a lift for the well-built official that tried to lift it with one arm in court. With the rock, Josh began smashing Becca's skull repeatedly. The force of the blows was so intense, and Becca's small frame, standing just 5 feet, 2 inches, and weighing only 38 kilograms, or 85 pounds, was no match for this brutal assault. She died from massive head injuries, her new clothes still clinging to her broken body as she lay face down in the wet dirt.
How horrific for her to make that realization that this is what was happening.
Right? To be all alone in the woods screaming.
And obviously having absolutely no idea. And it's just so haunting and eerie to me that she picked out this outfit. She did not know that that would be the outfit that she was murdered in, the last thing that she would wear.
No, it's so sad for everybody involved. Her aunt was excited to help her pick out the outfit.
And as the aunt, you would, not that you should, but you would almost feel guilty. Like, I helped her get this outfit. I probably talked excited with her. I dropped her off at the train station. Oh, this is horrible.
It was so horrible. And while Josh was doing this, Josh's 2 sidekicks were waiting around to hear from him. A couple of hours later, Josh called them and told them to come into the woods. Liam, the friend that had been with Daniel and Josh, asked, quote, "Are you still with Becca?" And Josh laughed before replying, quote, "Define with." Liam responded, quote, "I want all the details." In a text, he goes on to acknowledge that Josh is sadistic and finishes a response with a smiley face symbol.
What is wrong with these kids?
I don't know. It's so disturbing.
Did they actually come into the woods and see her?
Yeah. Liam, who was recovering from a rugby injury and was on crutches at the time, he didn't go into the woods because it was difficult for him to get in there. But Daniel did. Daniel would later describe the horrifying scene, saying he felt like he had walked into a cold shower.
What do you mean, Daniel? You're going to buy him breakfast.
Right? But he saw Rebecca's lifeless body sprawled out on the ground, her arms splayed, and her hoodie was still up, concealing most of her face. Josh showed no remorse at this time and callously remarked, quote, "Why don't you pull back her hood and look at her face?" He also boasted about the murder, saying, quote, "Do you know how hard it is to break someone's neck? The worst part was seeing and feeling her skull give way." Josh was described by his friends as, at first, a little bit panicked, but then he calmed himself and was just back to normal. One friend would describe him as being, quote, "cool in the woods."
So Daniel, because Daniel was the one in the woods with him.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, someone needs to check on Daniel. What is Daniel doing now?
I don't know.
If this is cool.
After all the things that they had commented about Rebecca and kind of encouraged him and not calling Josh out on the smack that he was talking, I questioned what he meant by cool. Did he mean like he was calm and cool and collected, or did he mean that he was cool and somebody to be admired? After leaving the crime scene, Josh acted as if nothing had happened. After hanging out a little at Daniel's house, he went to his grandmother's house, made tea, and settled in to watch Strictly Come Dancing and No Country for Old Men. He had no qualms about what he had done or what he had revealed to his friends, because he had made sure to tell them to lie about what they had been doing that afternoon and to delete their text messages. So Josh was set for a relaxing evening. He even updated his Facebook status, quote, "I enjoyed a rather good day today and had a lovely breakfast," smiley face.
A little inside joke to his friends.
He was confident that they weren't going to tell anybody, and he didn't think that he would be caught.
Please tell me that they do the right thing and call the police.
One of them does. Yeah.
Liam?
Yeah.
Daniel!
Yeah.
I thought this is finally the spot for Daniel to redeem himself.
No, he does turn in evidence against Josh eventually.
Probably to save his own butt.
Probably, because he's not the first one that comes forward.
Sorry, this just whole dynamic of these three boys is so disturbing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's this little mob mentality.
Exactly. By 5 p.m., Rebecca's absence was raising concerns with her mom. When her family could not reach her, they reported her missing almost immediately. Josh, despite being the last person seen with her, denied any knowledge about her whereabouts. But her mom was confident that Rebecca had met up with him because Becca had said his name on the phone with her while she was still on the phone.
Right. She saw him and said, "Yeah, I can see him, Mom. He's right here."
Mm-hmm. But she couldn't tell the police that I heard Josh speak.
Right. And if you're coming for a date, you don't want to be on the phone with your mom. She probably hung up with her just a couple of seconds before Josh approached.
No, she stayed on the whole time.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, and that's why Sonia said it was so weird because any other time that they had been talking on the phone, Josh would talk through the phone and say, "Oh, hi, Mom," or something like that to Sonia. And this time he didn't. But he did take the time to text Becca's phone, writing, quote, "Get in touch. We're all worried about you," when people started calling him to say, "Hey, have you seen Becca?" He was trying to establish an alibi. Becca's body would not be found until the following morning. On the morning of October 24th, 2010, at approximately 9 a.m., a police officer combed through the wooded area and found Becca's lifeless body. She was lying face down in the damp earth, her skull brutally shattered by the repeated blows. It was a horrifying end to a frantic overnight search by Rebecca's family to find her.
I can't imagine. I am grateful that a trained police officer found her and not some kids playing in the woods.
Right?
Because that would be so traumatic for anybody, let alone a child.
Or her family members. Police had been able to find Becca because Liam was overwhelmed with guilt and fear. For months, he had dismissed Josh's sickening boast about wanting to kill his ex-girlfriend. To Liam, it had all seemed like twisted bravado until it actually happened. Unable to bear the weight of what he knew, Liam cracked. He turned to his parents and confessed, saying that he thought Becca had been harmed, because word spread fairly quickly that Becca was missing. And so he fessed up to his parents. Not completely, though. He said, "I think Becca has been harmed," even well he knew.
Right.
But he kind of shielded himself because he said he didn't really know. He hadn't went into the woods. He just knew what the other boys had told him. Understanding the gravity of the situation, his parents immediately contacted the South Wales police. Guided by Liam's information, officers were led directly to Rebecca's remains, proof that Josh had turned his disturbing words into reality.
And this even just is blowing my mind that his parents don't believe it when his friend literally leads police to where she's at. And they have all these text exchanges and all this evidence against him. How do you not believe that your son did this?
There's a reason why his parents don't believe he's guilty. And that's because as soon as Rebecca's body was found, police moved quickly to locate and question Josh and Daniel. When confronted, the cold-hearted Josh displayed no emotion, no remorse. Instead, he effortlessly spun a web of lies, attempting to frame Daniel for the murder.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why his parents didn't believe him. Josh told police that he and Becca had planned a harmless prank on Daniel, intending to scare him, but claimed that Daniel suddenly lost control in a fit of rage when they laughed at him and he had bludgeoned Becca to death. Josh painted himself as a helpless bystander, insisting that he had been too shocked to intervene. He reasoned that Daniel hated Becca because she had previously turned down his advances.
I wonder if that's why he wanted him to pull back her hood so his DNA would be on there.
Maybe. He was very adamant that they come into the forest and see her.
Yeah.
As much as Josh tried to distance himself from the crime, the forensic evidence was damning. The crime scene was immediately secured, and investigators uncovered the murder weapon. They saw the bloodstained rock. Forensic analysis proved that fibers from Rebecca's new clothing were found on the rock, and so were fibers from Josh's own jacket, placing him directly at the scene and with the rock. Further investigation turned up another disturbing piece of evidence. In his grandparents' house, police uncovered a concoction of foxglove, deadly nightshade, mixed with Coca-Cola.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is not nice to think about, but wouldn't he have been covered in blood after that? Like, how did he just walk through the town and go to grandma's house? Because a head wound bleeds profusely.
It does, but remember he had been planning this. And so maybe he had a change of clothing in the woods already with him. And it was 2 hours before he called his friends to come and look. So he had time to go and clean up.
That is true.
With mounting evidence against him, police arrested Josh and Daniel on suspicion of murder. They were taken into custody for questioning, and authorities were granted an additional 36 hours to interrogate them before making a final decision on the charges.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Daniel, rattled by the weight of the situation, insisted that Josh had been the one who killed Becca. He admitted that they had talked about making foxglove poison, but denied any involvement in actually harming her.
Couldn't Daniel be charged with conspiracy? He knew about it ahead of time and hid it afterwards.
But Daniel ends up giving testimony against Josh.
To save his own little butt.
Probably. Yeah.
Ugh. Ay, ay, ay.
Some of the details about this case are a little obscured because they're all minors.
True.
Meanwhile, Josh continued with his lie, attempting to shift the blame onto Daniel. And this would be the story that Josh would stick to throughout his trial, and the story that his family wholeheartedly believed in. It was easier for them to believe that another child had committed this murder than their own.
Even when they saw the damning text messages against their son, they're still going to believe, even though it's their son saying that he's going to kill her, that it was Daniel.
Yep.
Oh.
That's why I ask, how big would your blind spot be?
Not that big.
On October 27th, 2010, Joshua Davies was officially charged with the murder of Rebecca. Daniel was released without charges. Josh appeared before magistrates in Bridge End Youth Court. He sat behind a transparent screen, flanked by security guards wearing a red t-shirt, under a black jacket. He spoke only to confirm his age and his name as murder charges were read against him. Psychological evaluations were ordered by the court to determine that Josh was fully sane. He was not mentally ill, just a remorseless, cold-blooded dirtbag. His behavior bore striking similarities to that of a psychopath, someone who could commit an unspeakable act without a trace of guilt.
Oh.
Remember, psychopaths are often sane.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, even in last week's case, the one forensic expert said that you can have all of these different mental health issues and still be sane.
Before the trial, Sonia was left in the dark regarding the details of what had actually happened to Becca. She recalled, quote, "Before the trial, I knew nothing at all. They told me what had happened, but they couldn't go into any detail. It was just waiting. You were just left to it, to your own thoughts. There was no information given."
Oh, that'd be torturous.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember when Kim spoke about that, about her niece's murder as well?
Yeah, some things they found out about on the news.
Mm-hmm. It would have been so awful. And I don't know why, but it's always so shocking to me that families find out the evidence at the trial or on the news, just like everybody else.
Right. You think they should be updated.
Right. You would want them to have all their questions answered, but they don't. In June 2011, 8 months after Rebecca's murder, the trial began, and it lasted 5 weeks, during which Josh showed little emotion and at times failed to even attend court. Throughout the trial, Josh denied any wrongdoing. Instead, he continued to shift blame onto Daniel. On the stand, yes, Josh did testify. He maintained the version of events, stating, quote, "I did not think he was going to be physically violent to her." And when pressed why he didn't intervene, Josh responded, "It just happened so quickly." The prosecutor tried to point out or challenge Josh, saying, quote, "Not that quickly. After the first hit, you said that she tried screaming, but she couldn't, that it was just like a noise. At that point, did you not finally understand what was going on and try to stop him?" Josh replied, quote, "When you see something like that happen to someone, you do not have an action plan right away. If you see someone hit someone with a rock, especially your best friend, you do not act right away."
Yeah, you do. Sorry, Melissa, but if I saw you hitting someone in the head with a rock, I would take you out.
Right?
And I would expect you to do the same for me.
Yeah.
And how did he explain away the strangulation attempt at the beginning? Because there had to have been forensic evidence of that.
Mm-hmm. There was.
But he was just in shock and froze.
Mm-hmm. That was his story. Despite maintaining his innocence, the prosecution presented damning evidence, including witness testimonies and Josh's own text messages, which implicated him in Becca's murder. Sonia recalled Josh's attitude in court, saying, quote, "I knew the instant he went on the stand, he was going to lie." She further described how Joshua appeared to treat the trial as the most casual event, laughing and joking with his defense team. After 4 days of deliberation, on July 27, 2011, the jury returned a 10-2 majority verdict, finding Josh guilty of Becca's murder. Josh showed no emotion as the verdict was read. However, he did begin to cry when Justice Lloyd Jones lifted the anonymity order, allowing his identity to be revealed to the public.
Good.
Mm-hmm. The judge stated, quote, "This is a crime in a small and close-knit community, and it's right that the public should know there has been a conviction and who has been convicted."
Absolutely.
Yeah. The senior Crown prosecutor, he said, quote, "This was a planned and calculated attack on a defenseless 15-year-old girl. Only the defendant truly knows what motivated him to commit such an act. What we do know is that Rebecca's family and friends continue to live with the awful consequences. We can only hope that today's verdict will in some way help them as they try to move forward with their lives." Neither Daniel nor Liam were charged with any crimes in relation to Becca's murder.
That's kind of shocking to me, actually.
I was so shocked at that.
Yes.
On September 2nd, 2011, Josh was sentenced to an indeterminate term.
What?
Yeah, with a minimum of 14 years before being eligible for parole. Taking into account the time served already at the time of sentencing, he is required to serve at least 13 years and 53 days. He showed no reaction to the sentence that was handed down, and his family remained equally impassive. Despite his conviction, he continued to deny responsibility for Becca's murder. Becca's murder deeply affected her hometown and the village where she was killed and Josh lived. The brutal nature of her death left a lasting impact on the community. Outside the court, Becca's mother, Sonia, expressed her grief and anger, saying, quote, "Josh robbed us of our perfect little girl. We will never forgive him for tearing our family apart so brutally, and would welcome the return of capital punishment for the likes of Josh, who forfeited his human rights when he chose to take my daughter's life." She spoke of Rebecca's aspirations, saying, quote, "Rebecca dreamed of becoming a barrister, a dream erased by Josh, a young man she trusted and loved. Rebecca believed in the justice system, and today justice has been served." Sonia also described the profound loss her family had experienced. Quote, "The evildoer Josh Davies robbed us of watching our precious, perfect little girl flourish into a successful young woman. She was a promising student, a wonderful friend, but most importantly, a loved and loving daughter and sister. Rebecca's murder left a hole in the lives of all who loved her." Even after his conviction, Josh held tight to his claims of innocence, and his family 100% believed him.
How?
I don't know. For years, Josh maintained his innocence. His family stood unwaveringly by his side. His mother, Haley, was adamant, saying, quote, "Everybody who knows us and Josh are 100% behind us. It is the people who don't know him who are saying these things, and I know it's not true, so I don't listen."
Well, I'm sorry, but I think Sonia knew him pretty well. He called her mom.
Mm-hmm. And she believed. She knew what had happened. Josh's father, Stephen, echoed Haley's sentiments, though, saying, quote, I don't like people saying it, but I can't hold anything against Sonia after what she's been through. All I would say to people is that there are two sides to every story. You don't know him as an individual, so how can you judge?
Because of evidence. That's how we can judge.
Mm-hmm. From the moment Josh was accused, his family rejected the idea that their son could be a murderer. Stephen said, quote, he is just not capable of doing that. As the trial unfolded, they clung to their belief, visiting him daily and holding on to the hope that the truth would eventually surface. Haley admitted, quote, it feels to me almost like we are grieving because he has been taken away from us. Luckily, of course, he is still alive and he can still speak, but the house is empty without him. His brothers miss him terribly, but at the same time, they both know he is innocent. They both have always looked up to their brother. They still do. The family dismissed claims that Josh was, quote, disturbed despite reports of his fascination with weapons, including knives and swords. Haley defended his collection, stating, quote, he had started collecting old and antique knives and swords and guns when he was 9. They were just things he's collected over the years. Stephen remained steadfast, pointing out that Josh says, quote, the truth will out in the end, and saying of his son, quote, we are proud of how he has dealt with this.
Wow.
But, of course, they were wrong. In 2018, 8 years after his conviction, Josh confessed to prison officers.
Oh, big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Becca's mother said that, quote, he woke up, asked to see someone, and just said, I did it. He told them before he told anybody else, even his family. But even this was not an act of remorse. She thinks it was a calculated move. Sonia suspects that this was simply a bid for an early parole.
Absolutely.
A manipulative strategy to portray himself as rehabilitated.
Yeah, I have to show remorse. I have to be sorry for what I did.
Yeah, Sonia said, quote, when he admitted it, I thought he must have a reason for doing it, as he had denied it all the way through. I thought he must have some hidden agenda. He's only doing it for his own behalf, not because he has any empathy for the family. It's cruel.
It is.
Right?
Yep.
And I think she pointed out a really valid point in that if he was actually feeling remorse, you think he would tell his family first.
Yes.
And he didn't share very much detail. He just said, yeah, I did it. Sonia says that she and her daughter Jess began almost immediately preparing victim impact statements for Josh's inevitable parole dates, where they will be forced to relive the horror of Becca's murder as they fight to ensure Josh remains behind bars. Sonia said, quote, going through the statement, I have had to reread everything. Every so often I have to stop. It's so cruel that we have to do this.
Not fair to the family.
No, it's not, that they have to fight to keep people behind bars. Josh, who has been described as a model prisoner, had now played his final card, confession. But I think it's clear it's just another manipulation, another attempt to deceive the system, just as he had deceived his own family. Meanwhile, Sonia's fight for justice has caused deep rifts in her own family. Her daughter Jess now actually has 2 children with Josh's younger brother.
What?
Yes, creating...
No!
Yes.
These families are now connected in marriage?
Yes, creating an unbearable strain between mother and daughter.
Melissa!
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually shocked to my core.
I mean, you can't always control who you fall in love with, but Jess's ties to his family have complicated this battle.
But even, okay, your daughter marries their other son, has children, and you can see Josh probably in those children.
Mm-hmm.
You married into the family of your sister's killer. No judgment on her. I've not had to go through what she has, but oh my goodness.
The repercussions for the whole family are huge. They have shared grandchildren, these 2 sets of parents that have fought.
This is unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have to know, Josh's parents, after he confessed, have they put out any statements? Because they were 100% certain, and everybody who knows them believed them, and their little golden boy would never do such a thing.
No, I think when he put out a statement, they were just as betrayed.
Oh, my.
Because they really did believe that he was innocent. Jess's ties to Josh's family have complicated their family relationship.
Well, how can you even go to your in-laws and see pictures of your sister's killer on their wall?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying not to judge, but I just cannot wrap my head around that yet.
How that even can happen.
Yes.
Right? And now Sonia has no relationship with her other daughter because she still continues to fight Josh's release.
So is Jess not going to fight Josh's release? She wants him to be out and be uncle to their kids?
She hasn't made any statements since starting a relationship with Jordan. But previous to her relationship with Jordan, she was fighting with her mom to keep Josh in prison.
But has stopped doing that.
I didn't see anything released after 2018.
Okay.
As Josh prepares to face the parole board, Sonia has launched a petition to ensure that he is never released. In the petition, she writes, quote, Josh Davies has applied for parole after serving only 14 years for the brutal murder of my beautiful 15-year-old daughter, Rebecca. Everything is in place for the parole hearing, and I have to do everything I can to stop him from being released because he will kill again. More families will go through the nightmare and the loss we live with every day. He will lie and manipulate, all involved to be released. Sonia's plea is urgent. She writes, quote, Can I ask you all to keep signing, sharing, and tweeting my petition? I need as many signatures as possible to keep him behind bars, to keep the public safe. Joshua Davies was convicted on September 2nd, 2011, and sentenced to 14 years for the premeditated murder of my daughter on October 23rd, 2010. His callous, cowardly, and calculating year-long planning into the most horrific ways to kill Rebecca have ruined our lives. He must not be set free to kill again or put more innocent people at risk. As the parole hearing looms, Sonia continues to fight. Rebecca's memory fuels her determination, and while Josh's confession may have shocked those who had once believed in his innocence, Sonia will not have the wool pulled over her eyes again. Josh was a master manipulator who duped so many people. He took advantage of Becca's trusting and helpful nature, of his parents' blind spot, and of his friends' belief that he was simply, quote, joking about committing murder. By playing on their trust and understanding and underestimating his capacity for violence, he was able to conceal his true intentions and indulge in his sadistic fantasies. His ability to distort the truth, coupled with his charisma, allowed him to create a facade of innocence and humor, which shielded him from suspicion until it was too late. His actions were a chilling manipulation of both people and perception, ultimately leading to the tragedy that could have been prevented if his true nature had been recognized earlier. And that is the case of the devious and calculating and truly disturbed dirtbag Joshua Davies, who used the trust and ignorance of those around him as tools to carry out a horrific murder.
That was awful, Melissa.
Yes.
And I agree with Sonia that he would do it again because I don't think he's really that remorseful.
I don't think he's expressed any remorse.
No, just, yeah, I did it. No details, no explanation. And so if I'm doing my math right, his parole is coming up this year.
As we speak.
It could be happening.
Yes.
So if you live in the UK, is it too late to go sign that petition?
I don't think so.
Okay, so do we have a website that we can tell people to go to or just search it and they'll find it?
We can post a link to the petition.
Listeners, I assume you have to be in the UK, we will post a link to that petition. And if you feel so pushed to do so, go and sign it. Because this is the most horrific thing for a family have to continue to relive.
It is. The parole system it's not a system that is made for victims' families.
I understand why we need to have a parole system in certain situations, but for something like this,
it is really sad.
It doesn't seem fair. Josh's mom was talking about how much this impacted their family, and I know that it did, but how it took away their son. But their son took away her daughter permanently.
There is no talking. There is no chance of seeing her again.
Right. There's no second chance for her.
No.
Wow.
I am always just shocked on how many people a dirtbag's decisions can affect.
100%. And next week, I'm going to bring you a case of yet another dirtbag.
We hope you'll join us then.
See ya.
Bye.
Now we test again.
Okay, let's test again. I can't decide if I want to call him Joshua or Josh. His nickname was Josh, but then sometimes I don't like using people's nicknames because it's like, no, that's endearment, and I don't like endearment for this guy.
True.
So you will be Mr. Josh for me.
Dirtbag J. Would you want it?
I bet you it's one of those things where they don't even allow it to happen. Do you think so?
I don't know. Superstitions. Superstitions.
And change it up throughout the thing. In hindsight. So his friends did know that Josh had this reputation. So his friends did know Josh pretty well. So his friends did think that.
What did his friends think? I'm wondering. I'm wondering what Josh's friends think. Could you please tell me?
I can tell you that. Just give me a minute to gather my thoughts. She was deeply orientally.
What? Exactly. I don't even know what you were trying to say there.
Family orientated.
Oh, that's not what I got from that.
No. They're just so sweet.
They are. Shout out to the Becca we know. Now you better look it
up. Oh, man. Okay, this should be like the last time that I have to look up a name. His friends dismissed.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.